Hi, I'm Nick with SprinterStore.com, and today we're going to be installing a MobiFrame seat swivel for our personal display van. So as you can see right now, our display van does have a aftermarket seat frame, but the installation is exactly the same as you would do in any other situation. So we're going to start by going over the basic tools we need, and then we'll go through the installation itself. So the basic tools you're going to need is a E-drive 12 socket for removing the factory seat bolts themselves. To install the seat bolts, we will be using a M6 and a 17mm. In this particular case, I have them in the format to mount to a ratchet, and the wrench is just to hold the nut on the top side. We will need a die grinder as well, as you do need to shorten the alignment pins. The measurement you will be shortening them to will be linked in the video, but it is approximately 5/16 of an inch or 8mm. So let's get the seat uninstalled. So to start off, I'm going to slide the seat all the way backwards, and I'm going to start by loosening the bolts. There are 2 bolts in the front and there are 2 bolts in the rear. Now that those 2 are loosened, we can swap over to our electric ratchet and remove the first 2 of the bolts. I'd like to note those 2 bolts are no longer used, as MobiFrame comes with its own hardware. Next, we're going to slide the seat all the way forward to access the rear 2 bolts and repeat the process exactly as we did before. We're going to be breaking the bolts loose with the ratchet and then using the electric drive to remove them. Now, before we go any further, we do need to disconnect the battery, as the seats have airbags in them, and we'll need to disconnect the airbag connector for the seat. To disconnect the battery, the factory battery is located underneath the floor here. However, good Sprinter owners know that behind this panel, which comes out with a little bit of force, there is a brown wire right here and a fast connect that you can use to disconnect the ground. And by pulling this wire, you can see the connector in my hand, you're able to disconnect the ground directly from the battery without having to open the battery box. This disconnects all electricals for the vehicle. So now that we've disconnected the power, we're gonna go ahead and pull the airbag wiring, which is this yellow plug right here. You can remove it by pinching that and that. You squeeze them together like so, and it pulls directly out. We're gonna set that beneath the seat, and now we're gonna start removing our 4 bolts. We have 2 up front here and 2 behind. So I'll remove these front 2, and then we'll move the seat forward and remove the rear 2. We'll set these bolts aside because we won't be reusing these, as the MobiFrame uses its own bolts. Like I said, now we slide the seat all the way forward. This allows us access to the rear 2 bolts. Once all these 4 bolts are out, move our tools aside. Do be careful, as the seat is now loose, so you don't want it falling over and knocking you in the head. The next step is going to be to shorten the alignment pegs on the bottom of the seat, as they will not clear as it is. We're now going to tip the seat backwards and carefully remove it from the van, like so. Always remember to wear eye protection when doing your cuts. I've gone ahead and pre-scored a mark on each of the 2 alignment pins to mark how much we need to cut off. I've marked them down to about 8mm, and now we're just going to take the die grinder and take just that forward piece off. So wear your safety equipment. Now we're getting ready to mount the actual MobiFrame seat swivel itself. I've already pre-rotated this a little so I can get access to the 4 bolts that go down into the existing frame mount. Okay, now we've got the MobiFrame on the seat base itself. We're gonna take the longer of the screws, and we're gonna use these as our 4 screws to mount it down. One of the advantages of the Mobi seat frame is it is one of the lowest profile seats, so you have the least amount of total rise when using a standard base. So we're gonna start by using a 6mm Allen and just starting the threads on all 4 corners to make sure everything is lined up. We don't want to tighten anything down until we know everything is where it's supposed to be. Now that everything's started, I'm going to swap to a power tool because I have one. And now we'll torque this down. So the next step is going to be to go ahead and put the chair on top of the frame here. I have the frame slightly out of its locked position so that I can get to all 4 bolt holes here from underneath. As the short bolts will come up and we will put a washer, the chair, and then the nut. So the first things we're going to do is put 4 washers down and then put the seat back in, and we'll be right back. So part of the reason you have to cut these alignment dowels down is so that when the seat swivels, that doesn't stick below. So now we're gonna go ahead and take our bolt and our nut, slide the bolt in from underneath, put the nut on top. In our case, we will not be putting a washer here, although that is what they're supplied for in case you need a little bit of extra room. We cut them down to 8 millimeters, which was enough clearance to make sure that they completely fit flush. At this point, you take a 17 millimeter wrench and your same 6 millimeter ratchet. Put the wrench on top, and we're gonna get a couple of turns on each one before we tighten everything down. These are nylocks, so they will be stiff, as the top of the nut has a nylon ring built in that keeps the bolt from backing itself out. So we do wanna leave these loose till all 4 are in place. Now that the rear 2 bolts are in, but still a little loose, we can now slide the seat backwards to go ahead and access these front 2 bolts and get the last of it aligned here. Now that we've slid the seat back, we're going to align the front 2 pins and put them in as well. You will find it quite important to keep the rears slightly loose, as sometimes getting the seat rails to align correctly, as you can see they have a little bit of play, can be fiddlesome if you don't. So now that these bolts are in, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten everything down and see how it came out. Now we slide the seat forward, tighten the rear 2 bolts, and that's it. We're tightening up the last bolt here, and then your MobiFrame seat swivel is installed. Now, as you can see, we can freely pivot the seat around as needed, locks in place in the rear position, and by pulling this lever, we can rotate the seat. You will need the seat slightly forward when rotating. One of the many advantages to the Mobi seat frame is this is TUV certified, which means this is European road certified, and one of the only seat swivels on the market that is. Go ahead and check them out at SprinterStore.com.